Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect on this was a Wednesday night. It is May 20th, 2020. I'm David Lotz. Joining me for this one is Bobby Jackson
Hey guys, how you doing?
and Michelle Hillard.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Yasha will be joining us later. He unfortunately couldn't make it to the beginning of the show, but hopefully he'll be joining us as we will, of course, be discussing his top five list, all of our top five lists, but it was his pick this week on what we were listing. So yeah, like I said, hopefully Yasha joins us later. But yeah, we'll get to our top five list later in the show. As always, we will be talking about some of the stuff we've been watching this week. And I would be remiss, though, if I didn't start the show off by talking about the huge news of the day. As you all know, Release the Snyder Cut, a hashtag that has been living now for a couple years or more, has finally done its job. And Zack Snyder announced today that indeed a Snyder Cut of the Justice League is coming to HBO Max in 2021. He did this, I guess, at the end of a watch party he was doing for Man of Steel. I didn't see that. I don't think any of us actually watched it, but we, of course, all heard about it as soon as the news hit the internet. That indeed there will be a Zack Snyder cut of Justice League hitting HBO Max in 2021, but there's not a lot more details other than that. Bobby, you might be able to fill us in a little better as to what the plans are with that. What do you know?
Yeah, so from a Hollywood Reporter article that I read, this whole thing kind of came about starting maybe around January, February. It started earlier than that with Zack Snyder and his wife, Debbie, I believe. And they had been, after the loss of their daughter, obviously really closed off and had time that they were grieving. And that was the reason why he had to leave the project in the first place. And Joss Whedon came in. And then I believe in the article it mentions that there was that healing process that they had to go through. And then the mindset was still on that unfinished that they didn't get to do. And so they started to essentially work on the unfinished aspect of the movie of what they could and create something out of it. And then I think Zack Snyder, as the article mentions, really kind of got in contact with a lot of the people at Warner Brothers, HBO Max, and just had them all come out, like all the bigwigs, the heavy hitters and everything, and come out to his place where he showed them what him and his wife had basically created. And through this, he explained, afterwards, and kind of gave a presentation of what else he figured they could do and could see. And in that meeting, Warner Brothers had brought people who were basically in charge of the money people who needed to figure out how much more do we need to contribute to get this thing ready to make it actually something that's a finished product. And from everything that I've read so far, it seems to be between 20 and 30 million that Warner Brothers is kicking in to finish this whole thing. And so essentially they reached out to the actors because I guess they're going to need them to come back for reshoots and shooting some scenes that weren't in the movie. Because depending on who you ask, Zack Snyder says maybe about a fourth of his movie is in the actual theatrical release. And so there was a lot that was cut out. And between what I was reading in different articles and able to piece together, it seems as though what Joss Whedon had to do was come in and basically finish something, but make it in the way that Warner Brothers wanted it to be. Because after Batman v Superman happened, the tone they didn't want to have that darker tone. They wanted something a little bit lighter, and so uh, Joss Whedon had to do reshoots based on what Warner Brothers wanted, but still fit it into the window of time when they wanted to release. Because I remember one of the things I read at that time was that Joss went to the studio heads, and said, can we move this release date out? Can we have more time to do some of these things? And they said no. They wanted it at the end of the year, and it was tied to bonuses and all this other stuff. So they didn't want to move that date. And he did what he could do with it. And personally, I actually am one of the people that really enjoyed the movie. So I was happy with the end product. I know that there's things about it that could have been better, but for what it was, I really did enjoy it. But it was not Zack Snyder's vision. And from what Zack Snyder's vision seems to be, is that there's a lot of aspects in that movie that he wanted to do sort of a two-part Justice League movie. So some things set up a second movie that are plot lines and threads that are in there that are for that purpose. And so obviously, not knowing those things are going to happen, Joss had to remove those aspects and do different things with it. So what he's doing, Zack Snyder, is putting together what he initially envisioned for what the Justice League movie should be. So what we'll get is something that maybe ends on a weird sort of cliffhanger that we'll never see resolved until maybe, I guess, if it does well, it opens up a whole can of worms, I guess, because if it does well, then are people going to start asking for a Zack Snyder Justice League 2? And then even if that's the case, what do you do with Batman? What do you do? So there's a lot of open-ended questions. But first and foremost, we are getting the Zack Snyder cut, and it will be coming out next year on HBO Max.
Well, before we go on, I'd like to welcome Yasha here to the show. He has made it.
Yasha!
Hello.
Showing up fashionably late.
Hey, I did the best I could. I'm really sorry, folks.
Oh, no, you're fine, man.
It's been a really busy day, much busier than what I anticipated. And to chime in, I couldn't help but hear the last part of that conversation when it came to the Zack Snyder cut and everything like that. I'm going to offer my opinion really quickly. I'm just going to jump in because I care very deeply about this. Why do we need this? Like, Bobby just ended it with the perfect example of what is wrong with the idea of doing this. One, you're not going to see a huge change, I don't think, in my opinion, of what this movie was. I really don't. Second, Bobby said it best. He's like, what do you do with Batman? What do you do with Superman? What do you do with some of these characters that, these people that we've gotten to know in those roles aren't coming back? You're going to basically present us with a bunch of questions that we're never going to get answered. Thanks, Warner Brothers. Like, again, you don't know what you're doing with your properties. You need somebody to take the helm and really center in on what the plan is. Because right now, the plan is completely fucked, and you guys are completely all over the place. That's it.
Well, I'll say my piece. I get what you're saying, but I guess for me, if this were a situation where there was a DC universe that was there that could even be salvaged, I mean, yes, there's no doubt that they have certain films that are going along and making a lot of money and doing really well. The Wonder Woman films, even if I didn't care for it, Aquaman made a ton of money. There's going to be more films in that franchise. Maybe we'll get a Flash film. We don't know yet for sure. But for the most part, as a combined universe, the universe is dead. And if there was actually a DC universe that was thriving right now, then I don't think I would want to see this cut, because we had a film that fits in canon of this universe. And even if Zack Snyder doesn't care for what was done, and a lot of us don't care for what was done, that would fit into canon. But in this case, we don't. We just kind of have nothing. It's kind of a mess. And hey, if we get to see what Zack Snyder intended to actually make, I'm kind of cool with that. I mean, it's not going to hit theaters. It doesn't sound like it's going to go straight to HBO Max. It's kind of just an extra, like a huge deleted scene we're going to get to watch as a special feature, basically, and in that sense, I'm very curious. I have definitely not jumped on the release the Snyder Cut bandwagon. I have not been like out there waving flags at Comic-Con going, my God, we need this movie. I haven't for the most part cared. But sure, I'm totally interested to see what he intended to make versus the film we got. Even if I did love the movie, which I didn't hate it. I was kind of middle of the road on Justice League. But I'm definitely curious to see it. So with that in mind, I don't know. I think it's kind of fun that they're actually going to give him the chance. They're actually going to put money into this, let him finish it. And I'll be curious to see in what form it comes out in. I mean, it sounds like there's a good chance it's could be cut into parts, or maybe it's going to be one huge 4-hour film. Who knows? Yeah. In that sense, that's where I am with this. Michelle, what's your take on this?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the same way right now. Like, I think it's more just, it can't hurt the franchise, honestly, at this point. Like, you can't make it worse. And I'd be curious to see what the actual art that Zack Snyder was trying to get for. Like, this was kind of like one of his little babies. I'd like to see his vision of everything. But as far as the whole DC universe, it can't hurt anything at this point. It's already a crap show. I mean, so I'm kind of like, yep, I'd watch it, mostly just out of curiosity, but I don't think it's going to do any harm, and I don't really think it's going to do anything that's going to make me question other things. It's just going to kind of be like, oh, okay, that was his vision. I got to see his vision. Cool. That's about it.
Right.
That's fair. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would definitely watch it, and I'm planning on watching it also. So don't get it twisted. That I think I have a really deep level of frustration with Warner Brothers and DC because they have these amazing products and they have these amazing characters where the stories are written for them. Even if you just altered it a little bit, you can carry a whole world, and it would be neck and neck with what Marvel's done. Like, I mean, I think they could fully kind of do the same thing. And there's nothing wrong with doing that template and doing that same thing because I think everybody is really pining for it and really hungry for it. And if you keep trying to reboot the characters, like, who's going to follow this? Like, they're just going to be frustrated because you keep rebooting. And then it's like, okay, well, people are going to get tired of seeing that over and over and over again. And this rebooting of trying to, like, reimagine the characters. And people will just, and then they wonder why it didn't perform like it should have. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Bobby, anything else to add before we move on to some stuff we've watched?
Nothing other than the idea that it's curious that Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers are working together again on this. So I'm wondering now, is this maybe just to close the chapter on it, or will it lead to him being back involved in the DC universe in any sort of capacity? So I guess we'll have to wait and see how this does. To me, it's a no-brainer that it's going to do extremely well. I mean, because the people who've been wanting it and asking for it are going to support it. People out of curiosity are going to support it. It's going to do well. So it's going to be one of those things where how will the reception be for it? And to me, already the fact that they're putting Darkseid in it, it just makes me want to see it and now see where else it could have gone. So it's going to create a lot of stir between the fandom in terms of what comes next and where Warner Brothers should be going with their universe. So get ready for that. We got a year at least to wait until all that gets stirred up again.
Right. Well, we obviously want to get to our top 5 list for tonight, but we'd like to usually touch a little bit on what we've been watching this week. Michelle, let's start with you. Anything you watched this week you want to talk about real quick?
The only thing I've really watched that's really worth talking about is Hulu's show that released back on Friday, which is called The Great. And it's about the Russian Empress Catherine the Great. And it stars Nicholas Hoult as Emperor Peter, and now I can't think of her name. But David, you were watching
Elle Fanning.
Thank you. Elle Fanning as Catherine the Great. And it's from the producers of the film The Favorite, which I loved, and I know David loved as well, very much. And so the TV show, it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very kind of a dark humor. Not kind of, it is. It's a darker humor. But it's pretty accurate to history as far as the events that are occurring in it. And I'm really enjoying it, honestly. And I watched 3 episodes with David, and then I actually wound up watching the first 2 episodes over again with my family, and they seemed to be really enjoying it too. And so, even on the second viewing, I think I actually like it even a little bit more just getting to watch the 2 episodes over again. So I highly recommend it. If you have Hulu, you should be watching The Great. It's fantastic.
Very nice. The Great on Hulu. Yes, I have watched a same couple episodes as well, and I'll just say really quick, since you're already talking about it, that yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I'm going to keep watching it. I guess it's considered a mini series, right? I don't think it's going to be a continually running series, from my understanding. At least I saw it. I've seen it described as a mini series. So don't quote me on that. But yeah, it definitely feels like The Favorite, if you like The Favorite, for sure. So far, everyone's really good in it. I mean, I've only seen a couple episodes. That's why I don't have so much to say on it yet. But so far, I like it. Real quick, Yasha, anything you watched this week you want to talk about?
I wish I had something that was groundbreaking. I think I started a series and finished it, but in all honesty, I don't remember what it was. Sorry about not being super prepared for that.
It must not have been that interesting.
It wasn't that memorable, obviously. I think I started and finished it. I'm like, what did I watch? What was it? Wow. So clearly it wasn't top of the run of the mill when it comes to it. So my apologies. I am watching The Last Dance, the documentary of the Jordan series, their last championship, learning a lot about him that I didn't know and being reminded of some of the things that I did know. It's solid. It's a solid show. They did a really good job with this documentary, and it's kind of fun to see old school basketball and the talent that these players had. But that's it. Like, I really don't have anything else. I've started a few series that I've already watched. I started Daredevil again. So, nice. But aside from that, like, I don't really have too many other things that I can contribute and say that I'm actually like super into or remember watching. The Great is at the top of my list of things to watch, because I really want to watch that show, and it looks fantastic.
All right, how about you, Bobby? Anything you've watched this week?
Yeah, well, CW premiered a brand new superhero show yesterday called Stargirl. It's a character that's from the JSA, and in this incarnation, the Starman passes on the mantle to his daughter. And this one, it kind of reminds me of The Flash when it first started. Except for it seems to be, no, I wouldn't say it's aimed at a younger audience, but it seems like it's really built out that way, at least within this first episode. It has me interested enough to watch a little bit more to see exactly where its footing, once it gets its footing, to see where it kind of lands. But it's interesting enough so far that I'll tune in a little bit more. I wouldn't say it was great, but it wasn't something that turned me off from it. So I'll keep watching, and I'll report back if I notice anything a little bit better or worse about it. Something else I've been watching, I've been continuing on with The West Wing. I've gotten into season 3 right now. Season 3, episode 2 I'm about to start this week, and been continuing with that, so that's been all good. The other thing I started watching, which is popped up because a lot of people watched it. It passed me by. I guess maybe I just didn't. It wasn't on my radar at the time. But it's been a really popular series. It's on Netflix, and it's called Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it's an animated show. And a lot of people love and swear by it. And I just never watched it. So I've started watching that. I'm about 6-7 episodes into the first season. And so far, I wouldn't say I have anything specific to report other than I'm okay with it so far. It's not anything earth-shattering or groundbreaking in what I've seen in these first few episodes. But I know it must get way better because people say it's like their favorite animated cartoon of all time. And so it must get a lot deeper and more intricate and involved and better storytelling than what the first few episodes are. Right now, I guess it's still just sort of laying the groundwork in a way, but basically, for anyone that doesn't know, the main story is about this kid who possesses the power of all the different elements, and he is the last of his kind to be able to do these things. And he's kind of going from place to place and helping out where he can. But there's a enemy that's the fire kind of enemy of the group that can bend fire, and they seem to be the ones that want to take him out. And so it's a kind of a quest of battling against the fire group and just trying to help out other people along the way. And I imagine there must be some other aspects that go along with it. But so far, I'm not there yet. But it's all right so far. That's pretty much it.
Well, yeah, Bobby, your video's frozen, but we have a good shot of you on the.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was just me. Like,
No.
I was just like,
We can hear
I'm like,
hear
what is
Bobby,
happening?
but we
Yeah.
can't see him anymore.
At
Well,
least it's not
that's
like
fine. If
mid
you wanna leave that
sneeze or
image.
something.
Yes. No, at least he's not like a really awkward facial expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just say really quick. Other than the great, I haven't really watched anything new other than the fact that I haven't had a chance to mention that. I mean, we talked about the show Hollywood the last
yeah.
time we did an episode. Yasha, you had finished it. I hadn't. Michelle, you actually didn't get a chance to talk about it at all, Michelle. I finished it now, and I won't go on too long. I'll just say overall, I enjoyed watching the show. I really liked the characters mostly. So I just kind of enjoyed every episode, just kind of seeing what these characters are going through, what's going on. When it comes to the show, though, as a whole, I have mixed feelings on it. Even though I would say overall I did enjoy it, there's I think a little too much kind of a Ryan Murphy polish to it that I kind of wish it didn't have. And obviously it's revisionist history. I mean, this is not real history. And I get that, but then some of the choices, I found kind of odd, things that were changed, but then things that weren't even kind of recognized among the drama that was going on here, the racism, the homophobia, but then, some things that I clearly would have gotten a reaction in that era that aren't even mentioned, I feel like, in the show. Like, they're just kind of accepted as, okay, yeah, it was fine. I don't know. It almost deserves like a good 30-minute to an hour like discussion, and we don't have time for that. But yeah, I don't know. In a way, I thought it was an interesting idea. I definitely, of course, love the message of the show, absolutely. But there was a little, I think, again, too much of a kind of a polish to the show overall that I felt like did more harm than good. So that was
It
Hollywood.
was just a
on
little
Netflix.
almost a little too La La Land ending, if you would. Just a
Like
little too happy.
happily ever. Everyone
Yeah,
lives
and-
happily ever
And
after.
everybody lived happily ever after, and racial equality was perfect, and everybody
Right.
was great. And it's like, that's really not how that shit went down. But
No,
all
I
right.
mean, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get into spoilers, but the one thing I'm referring to that I just found really odd is obviously there's a lot of drama about the fact that, you have an African American woman as a lead in a film back then, and, but then there's obviously a lot of backlash they have to deal with in that era for doing that. But then there's other stuff like the fact that there's an interracial marriage in this show, and it's not even like acknowledged. Like, they go to the Oscars and it's just like, yeah, everyone just thinks it's fine, and no, like, then it would not that would not
Right.
have been the reaction whatsoever.
Or-
So
Right. Well, you know what? We're not going to do spoilers, so there's really no
Right.
reason to kind of keep diving into that. So it's like, maybe we can do an episode where we talk about 15 to 20 minutes and dissect it.
yeah, maybe we'll do like a little bonus episode
but
one
I
night
had-
and just jump on and talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about with it. I mean, overall,
I
I
had
enjoyed the
issues
show.
with.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have issues with Jim Parsons' character, like a lot. Like the way that he was rounded up and kind of the resolution with his character. I had a huge problem with that, because after doing a little reading about that character and everything like that, that is not how that shit went down. And they just made it seem like that's how it went down. And I was just like, no, that's really not even remotely close to accurate or that's just fantasy at that point. And I get it. Like you, I understand the message. I appreciated the show. I like the historical context of it and seeing old school Hollywood. But yeah, I definitely took some issues with some of the things that they ended the show with.
Yeah. But yeah, Michelle, you didn't get a chance to talk about it at all. What did you think of it really quick?
I mean, really quick, obviously, the golden age of Hollywood, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, it's like my favorite time of Hollywood. Like, I love it. I love the glitz and the glamour and the drama of it all. It's one of my favorite, eras of time in Hollywood. So the show is like right up my alley, honestly. I will say this. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun ride. Really, for me, up until the last episode, and I know that it's got the whole, Ryan Murphy, polish on it, and it's revisionist history, but there's some things that I think are really in your face, and then some things that are not at all, and then there's, issues that are brought to the attention and things that, are there, and then like you're saying, like the interracial couple is just like, if you're doing revisionist history, he's basically saying that the interracial couple were totally fine in the 1950s, which I don't know. It just didn't follow the context of what he was doing. Like, anyways, it's hard to explain. Like, it's one like I have nothing against interracial couples, obviously. Like everything's, but it was a mixture of messages. And it was like, if you're going to pick a revisionist history, then all the things need to be having the same issues. This one can't be glazed over and fine and moving forward. I don't know. But I'm nitpicking. As a whole, I actually really enjoyed it. I like the stories that each character has, their backstories, and then their story moving forward and their character developments, I think is really great. And I thought it was really enjoyable. It was just a nice show to kind of watch at the end of a day and kind of lose yourself in the story that was happening and unfolding, and then also just the golden age of Hollywood. It's just lovely. That's really all I could say. So yeah, we could definitely talk about this for a while, I think. There's a lot of messages that kind of wrap up into the one main message, which is lovely. And if only everything would ever wind up that perfect at the end in a tight little box with a big bow on it, that would be great. And it's an escapism show. It's to escape the reality of life and the situation of our world that we're still living in and that these people are still struggling in. So it's nice. You can escape into this realm of positive endings and positive outcomes, and that's great. So at the end of it, it's an enjoyable show for sure. And I know for a fact, if I go hunt it down, it was an episode, and it wasn't a very long part, but there's an episode that one of the characters goes into this bar, and I'm like, dude, David, you and I totally were in that bar in January. Like, I'm telling you, that was that bar. There's no way it wasn't that bar. The lighting, the seats, the way that was totally that bar.
It most likely was. Yes.
Like, I could have put money on it. Like, I was like, oh my god, we were totally in that bar back in Jet. Like, literally just happened. We were super there. I was all excited. Yes. It's really stupid. I'm sorry.
Of course I can. I worked across the street from that bar for over a year or so, and right now it escapes me. It's an old classic Hollywood bar.
Matador?
No.
What was it called?
Maybe I'll look it up while we're talking about it.
It was just funny. I was just like, dude, we were literally just there. Anyways, weird stuff. Anyways, we should get off this topic.
That was Hollywood on Netflix, which, you can still watch. What was that? 7 episodes, wasn't it? Or 8?
8.
Something like that.
Yeah.
All right, moving in.
Real quick. Before you move on, the way you guys are talking about the ending, it makes me feel like Ryan Murphy tried to do his version of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And and try and give a different ending towards what reality showed. Basically.
Well, and it wasn't just about like the ending being different. I mean, the whole show is definitely a different history.
And there's a slow build towards that ending.
Yeah, there definitely is. But I mean, I definitely, again, like I had no problem with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and the way he changes things up there, and I have no problem with changing things up and kind of telling a different story that didn't happen. It was, again, more just some of the choices felt odd when you compare them to some of the other choices that are being made for the show. Without talking spoilers, that's the best way I can explain it. So, yeah, it could easily kind of have its own episode, a discussion on that show. And,
Maybe we can do that later.
yeah, maybe some other time. All right, time to move into our main topic of the week. And of course, we have our top 5 list, which this time around was chosen by Yasha Wilson. And we are going to be counting down. Well, yeah, Yasha, what was it that you want us to count down this week?
I wanted to count down top 5 movies that we're never going to get a sequel for. And yeah, that's pretty much it. A sequel, a trilogy, anything to that nature. Yeah, but that's something that I always think about is like movies that that desperately need a sequel, and we won't get that sequel. We won't get that resolution, and it makes me sad.
Gotcha. All right. Well, since you chose the topic, why don't you go last? Michelle, you have been chosen to go first.
I go first.
You go first. Your number 5 movie that you feel like should have a sequel that doesn't have one.
I am so excited. I'm sorry. I am so excited. I am going to interject. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michelle, but I am so excited to hear everybody's list. There's a few out there that I'm sure we all recognize, but I'm genuinely excited to hear what everybody has to say.
Well, it's funny because there was a few films that I thought of pretty quickly, and then it was like, wow, I need to come up with more. And so I had to kind of goof around the internet, kind of refresh my head of like, oh yeah, that would be a good sequel film. Like, you know, like that would make a good movie to become a sequel, hopefully, but maybe not. But for me, my number 5 film that should have a sequel is a movie that I don't think it did spectacularly well, but it wasn't like a bad film. But it's the movie The Nice Guys. It's the one that had Kurt Russell and Ryan Reynolds, and it took place in the 70s in Los Angeles. And it's these 2 guys that wind up kind of solving this crime issue that was happening. And then they both kind of go into business as private detectives. And I'm like, I could totally watch another one of these films with these guys. Like, it was really entertaining. It was really good. And I'm like, I would love to see them jump into another huge crime issue and figure it out. Like, I'm down with it. It was great.
All right, The Nice Guys is your number 5. I think I'm next. My number 5 is going to be a movie that I don't think a lot of people are going to feel like fits the mold, because technically I guess it does have a sequel. Though it's a sequel, it's not the sequel I want, and it's not a sequel in a way I recognize. And I'll admit, it's also a sequel I haven't seen. So, I mean, there is that. But I don't really have an interest necessarily in seeing it. A movie that for a while there didn't even seem like it was going to get a sequel at all, and I still don't really feel like it has had one. And I really wanted an entire franchise of movies from this film. And that is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. After watching this movie, which I enjoyed a lot, I really was able to see that you could have an entire franchise of movies, almost like a James Bond franchise, but with her character in this film, the one played by Rooney Mara. And Daniel Craig's great in the film. I could see a few films with these two, or just her character interacting with other people in it. I haven't read these books, so, I mean, of course, I'll be clear too that I don't know what happens in the books past this film. But yeah, I don't ignore the books if you have to. I could have seen many, many more films. I probably would have watched all of them. Yeah, that was a movie I really wished had a true sequel with the same cast anyway. So yeah, my number 5 is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Our dog is making lots of noises tonight. With that, Bobby. What is your number 5 of the week?
What was that laugh for, Yasha?
I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing at David and the dog. And
my dog is laying right here next to me. I don't think my dog agreed with my number 5 pick, because she got pretty. So,
I'm gonna let her out.
yeah, it's probably a good idea. All right, Bobby, what is your number 5 pick this week?
My number 5 is Zootopia. And Zootopia for me, it was a movie that, first of all, there's not been a lot of Disney CGI movies that I've watched that I could say that I really just super came out of the theater like, man, I really would like to see another one of those. But this movie did that for me. It had all the elements that I like in the same way that a Pixar movie would have. It has the humor, it has a good story, there's some drama to it. This one had a mystery to it as well because you're trying to figure out who's the who done it kind of aspect to it. And the fact that for me, one of the things that steals the whole movie is Jason Bateman. His character of Nick Wilde is like, I don't know, he's just such a smooth kind of character, and it's fascinating to me that this movie came out of nowhere, original property IP for Walt Disney, made millions of dollars. They're supposed to be building a Zootopia land someplace, right, David? Is it Walt Disney World or is it
Oh,
overseas? I'm not
I
sure.
hadn't heard that. No, I don't know.
I think Disney Seas in
So-
in Tokyo is getting it.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, there you go. So for the fact that they won't even build a land for it shows that it's pretty popular, but yet we have no sequel for it. So that really is surprising to me, and it's something that I think that people would really go flock to see if they actually came out with one. So that's my number 5.
all right. Yasha, that leaves you for the last number 5. What's your number 5 film on this list?
I'm going to go right in and keep with the trend of surprising everybody's list. Like, I know that this is a movie that I remember enjoying, but definitely, like Michelle, actually, I had to kind of do a little searching and kind of like dancing around on the internet because there are definitely the ones that I have that are stuck in my head. And I'm like, yeah, I wish that there was a sequel for this. But I did have to do a refresher course. And the first movie that I think I would really, really, really enjoy seeing a sequel for, and that is Dracula Untold. Came out in 2014 with Luke Evans. The ending for that was so savage with a lead-in for a sequel that I just don't think we're ever going to get. It really, really bums me out because I would love to see what the next chapter of that story would be.
Dracula Untold. That's a movie I haven't even seen, I'll be honest. Yeah, I never
Me
saw
either.
it.
What?
And-
Bobby, you see everything. How do you not have seen it?
Because everybody crapped on it before it even came
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
and then
I
they
didn't hear
crapped
anything
on it
good
when
about
it
it.
came out. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not
Yeah.
gonna watch that.
No, like, you know, I kind of enjoyed it. Like, I really kind of thought the special effects especially were a lot of fun. And maybe it was just the last scene. I mean, maybe I'm remembering wrong, like in my how much I enjoyed it or that I did enjoy it. But the cliffhanger that they had was so powerful that, like, hey, this is, you know, where we're going with the story, or this is what we could do with the story. Is just like, oh shit, like I want to see what happens next. And well, we're never gonna get that.
No. All right, moving on to number 4. Michelle, what's your number 4 film?
Well, my number 4 can be contested that there kind of is a sequel-ish in a way, but for me, I don't think it is. But I would love to see a sequel to the film The Watchmen. I mean, I know that HBO is doing their thing, and I loved it, but I don't think it's not a sequel. It's not a film sequel. It's a little mini-series kind of thing. I don't know. And I love the show. I'm not knocking on it. I'm just saying. Why are you laughing at me? I can see you over there with a smirk on your face. Such a smirk.
I have no idea what you're talking about. No, so I did see your list beforehand, and this surprised me when I saw The Watchmen on here. This was not one I expected. I mean, yes, I mean, hey, I just listed a movie that technically has a sequel at my number 5, but yeah, The Watchmen has the show, which basically is a sequel to that movie, and it's also amazing. I mean, that's probably one of the best shows I've seen in a while.
I will agree.
So yeah, I mean, but hey, I get what you're saying. You want to see a
But
movie?
technically, we're talking about movies that should have film sequels.
You are correct. I am
So-
with you.
That's where it's at. I'm gonna go get our howling dog from the backyard.
All right, All right.
She tore off that back door too, dude.
All right. I guess that means it's time for my number 4. My number 4 is a movie, I guess almost kind of along the lines of like, you know, when you picked Nice Guys at number 5. I didn't pick Nice Guys at number 4, but this is a team up, a buddy kind of, well, not really buddy. It's not like buddy cops or anything, but anyway, it's a film I definitely could have seen. Also a franchise of films, at least like a trilogy of movies with these two characters and or more. And I think it would have been a lot of fun. And that was The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was the other one I was going to put on my
Stop.
list. Dang it.
That is on my notable mentions, my
Oh,
honorable
I was
mentions.
going to write
man.
that one
No lie.
too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed The Man
That's
from
a whole
U.N.C.L.E.
franchise.
I don't think it got enough recognition.
It did not.
I really enjoyed it.
Not even a little bit.
I wish there could have been at least a couple more movies with
Right?
these
100%.
two. I really like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. If you're watching and you haven't seen it, I
It's
will
solid.
first say I'm probably not surprised because I don't think a lot of people saw this movie,
sadly.
which I found really weird.
No.
And
Yeah.
no, you should. It's a really good movie. So The Man from U.N.C.L.E. That's my number 4.
There's no reason why that people shouldn't have seen it. Like, it was good. Like, I mean, that was a
Totally.
damn good movie. It just got destroyed at the box office, though. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the budget to make was 75, and it only opened at $13 million. Like, that's not great, you know. But you are not wrong, sir. That movie was amazing, and I definitely have that on my. That's my one honorable mention when it comes to like what I would love to see. It was between that and basically Dracula Untold as to like what I would want to see a sequel to, or a whole franchise, because they really could have done a whole franchise for it.
Oh, easily.
Sorry.
Easily they could have. It was such a good one. Oh, I meant to write that one down. Dang it.
All right, Bobby, you're number 4 this week.
So my number 4 is along the same lines as yours, David, because it's exactly yours. It's The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It's such an underrated Guy Ritchie movie, and
It really is.
just deserved better. It deserved better, and I wish that. I think this is a Warner Brothers movie, so maybe it'll be on HBO Max, and people will discover it there, and maybe it'll build to something. But that is such a great film and such a great pick by you, David, that obviously I share it.
You just had to
It's
copy
both
it.
our number 4s. And it's just, if you have not seen it, please do yourself a favor, go out and watch that movie. It's excellent.
Nice.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, it's
good.
so solid. It's so good. It's so underrated. Such a fun film.
That's a solid number 4 pick there, Bobby.
It is.
All right, Yasha, what was your number 4 this week?
My number 4, technically we already have a sequel to this, but this is something that I think they could have done better, and this could have been a whole franchise as well. And I had high hopes that they were going to continue something, and maybe we will eventually get something leading into it. I chose Tron as my number 4 as movies that I would love to see a continuation, a sequel, a trilogy, anything, because I feel like they didn't do justice with the one that they released a few years ago. I think they missed a step, and I was really hoping that we can get more of that world, because it is a very, very special world. Maybe it's just me holding a special place in my heart for that and watching it when I was a kid, but I think there's a lot to be explored in that world.
Tron. Your
I had a
number
feeling that would
4.
show up somewhere.
I knew. I was thinking David probably have. He's like, I want more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to be clear, you're saying the first film, Tron. You're not talking about Tron Legacy. You wish there were a sequel to Tron, other than Tron Legacy.
We can
Other
go-
than Tron Legacy.
we could do both. We could do Tron or Tron Legacy. Like, I could, I would be happy with a continuation of both. I feel like they should have done better with Tron Legacy. I know you like that movie, David, but I think that they missed the mark a little bit when it came to that, at least for me.
Right.
But that being said, it's like, I think I want to go back and I want to watch it. I'm not sure if it's on Disney Plus, but I'm going to look to see if it's there, and maybe I'll give that show that movie another shot, and see where it goes, because the special effects are revolutionary. They're sublime.
Right.
over the top, but I definitely would love to see a continuation of that world. And I know that I don't know if we're ever going to get that.
Yep, that's a good question. All right, moving on to number 3. Michelle, what's your number 3?
So, my number 3 is a film that I really, really enjoyed a lot. And I remember the movie ended and I was like, oh my gosh, I want more of this. And I'll say the movie does actually wrap up pretty well. Like there's really no like loose ends to it, but it's mostly just like I enjoy this world and I could see it from a different take or different aspect. But my number 3 is Edge of Tomorrow. Some know it as Live, Die, Repeat. That's what some people, I mean, they do. No, I think it's a fabulous film, and it was just done incredibly well, and I really like the story, and I liked the setup and the idea behind it. And it could be something of a revisit. It could be something of a prequel. It could be something that has more explanation of the situation when the aliens get there. It could be a lot of things, I think. But basically just more of that premise in some way, shape, or form. I would be pretty down for that.
Edge of Tomorrow.
That's
your number
solid.
3. That is a solid pick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a solid pick. Bravo,
Again,
Michelle.
I
It's a damn
acknowledge
good
that they
movie.
wrapped it up really well at the end. So it's obviously would
Yeah.
have to be like another take on it, like from some other people's point
Oh,
of view
no.
on another side of the world, or so. I don't know. It could be whatever, but
Right.
I'd love to see a sequel.
Just kidding.
I'd love to see a sequel. I'd love to see it happen all over again, like in just a different variation. I thought the movie was hilarious and fantastic.
Yeah.
It was great.
it's okay.
It was.
It's like the best version of Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, really, really violent one.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a really violent one.
Moving on to my number 3, right? Yeah, we're on my number 3. My number 3 is, I'll just say it, it's Kill Bill.
Oh, you want a third?
No, I want a second. So, because really, in reality, those two movies they were
one
intended
film.
as one film,
Right.
and he split it into 2 films, and I'm glad he did. I like the 2 films he made, but it's a movie I mean, there's been a lot of talk, even by him, of returning to it and seeing what happens with Vernita Green's child coming back for her. And there was, I don't know how true it is, there was a lot of talk that he actually shot footage of the girl back when they made Kill Bill when she was that young, so he could have footage of her in case he ever went back to make
Wow.
a sequel. Again, I
That's
don't
cool.
know if that's true, but I've heard that. I think if Quentin were ever to make a sequel of any of his films, this is the one I'd like to see. So, yeah. With the idea that Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 are actually one movie, I would like to see a second Kill Bill film. So that's my number 3 film.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Very good choice.
Bobby, you were number 3.
Oh man, my number 3 is a movie that, again, we're talking about movies that are underrated or maybe have a cult status. Not enough people watched it at the time, and it deserved better. Nothing to me fits this bill more than my next movie, which my number 3 is the 2012 Carl Urban movie Dread. And this was the movie that I think if Sylvester Stallone was more into the comics or had more of a feel for that, that would have been this movie, because this movie took no prisoners. It went and had a story that was real lean and no fat on it, and it just told this story of dread where Carl Urban stayed in the helmet the whole time. He doesn't reveal his face. He's just about his business. They go into this building, him and his rookie partner that he's helping with, go into this building to try and essentially take out Lena Headley and to get her as the, I guess, who's the person in charge out, but they have to go all the way up, sort of like The Raid in a way, but The Raid with Dread. And it was just such a good movie that not enough people saw. And I was hoping that at some point maybe that they were going to make a sequel, and it seemed like they were getting close, but then nothing happened. Then there was even talk of maybe doing it as a series. That may still happen at some point, and it was even being talked about with Carl Urban. So that would be great if that happened, because I could absolutely see it as a series. But so far, there's nothing, and I think it is definitely deserving of a sequel. So that's my number three.
I think that's a solid pick. Because actually, that was my number 6 film that did not
Oh.
make the list. Yeah, that's the film, Michelle. I was saying I don't think you've seen Dread, have you?
I've seen, the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd, but I've
Right.
never seen Dredd. No.
And I never saw that film. I've only seen this one.
It's hilarious.
And I remember definitely my reaction to when I had seen trailers for it, going, "Oh God, it's just a remake of The Raid." It really looks like The Raid. I didn't even want to see it, but I had heard so many good things about it. It was one of those situations where I was like, "Well, I have to see it now to see." Well, I was shocked that people were kind of raving about it, and it didn't disappoint.
It
It
shows
was-
up on a lot of people's lists for
It's-
wanting a sequel.
That's a solid movie that I would have loved to have seen him in that role more. And yeah, like you mentioned, Bobby, the fact that he did that movie, he never took his helmet off. You never actually see his face as an actor. Like it was
That's
really good.
crazy for an actor.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. All right, Yasha, you're number 3.
Yeah, I mean, that movie was super, super dark, wonderfully well done. Bobby hit every nail on the head there, including my number 3 being Dread also. So,
Nice.
so there's that. I don't need to really dive too much more into what he said,
Oh,
other than the movie definitely deserves a sequel. And for a while, a very long while, there was a strong internet presence where there was a real fight to try and get a sequel made. I thought for a while it was going to happen. I'm sure Bobby did too, because I'm sure he got the emails and
Yeah.
the email alerts just like I did. I got all of them, and I was like, sign the petition for a Dread 2. I'm like, yes, please. Yes, please. This movie is amazing. Lena Headley is it? Is fantastic.
Headey.
The directing, the
I
special
mispronounced
Headey. Yeah,
Yeah.
the special effects were fantastic in the movie. The foresight, the directing, how dark it was. This movie was just grit. It was just a fun action movie, and it is totally entitled and deserving of a sequel. And it's just a shame that we won't ever get that. That petition was floating around for a while, 6 to 9 months. I think I saw it, just very active push for it, and they just never pulled the trigger, and it never happened. But that is my 3. Dread is my number 3, and I wish we would get it.
All right, Dread, all around.
Man.
All right, Michelle, you're number 2.
My number 2, I'm just gonna jump into it. It's Pixar's Inside Out. I thought that film was just incredible, and I think it really captures what happens inside of all of us in a little more simplified way. But yeah, the transition from childhood into pre-adolescence is pretty traumatizing. And I'll be honest, as crazy as that sounds, I would love to see the transition of pre-adolescence into full adolescence or even, maybe adulthood, and kind of see the transitions that emotionally you deal with going from really realizing you're leaving all childhood behind and moving into the next phases of your life, and how your emotions develop into such a way that it's even more complex than you knew. But I thought the first one I thought Inside Out was an amazing film, and I would definitely see a sequel to that for sure.
Nice. Inside Out, number 2 for you. My number 2 is, yes, a movie that maybe I liked more than others, and I fear it will never get a sequel. It kind of saddens me. But there's still these rumblings about it here and there. It can happen. The fact that a theme park ride is coming gives me somewhat hope. It could revitalize some interest in this franchise, and maybe there will be another film, a third film, in my opinion, in this franchise. But yeah, that is Tron Legacy. I enjoy Tron Legacy. I understand the problems that people have with it, but even just visually, I think it's one of the most beautiful films I've seen in a long time. And I enjoyed the film quite a bit, and I've been wanting another Tron film from this director again for quite a while. Again, I'm not really holding out hope that will happen, but yeah, that's where I am. Tron Legacy, that's my number 2.
Can I go on the record just for saying called it?
Called it.
Totally knew you were gonna have that on there. I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh well, yeah.
I was like, he's
I
totally
thought you
gonna
meant
have
you
Tron
actually
on there.
called it at my number 2. I'm like,
No,
man, that's
I
pretty
wish
good.
I could have done that, but I was like, he's totally gonna have Tron on his list. It's definitely
yeah.
happening.
It was a close
David,
number 1.
Did you ever watch the
no.
animated series?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I didn't watch all of it, but I
How
did.
was it?
It was okay. That's why I didn't keep up with it.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's on Disney Plus, so now I know I'm going to go revisit Tron Legacy now because I just looked it up and it is on Disney Plus. So I'm
Nice.
definitely looking forward to checking that out.
Yeah, that's a movie now that I realize. Yeah, if it's on Disney Plus, it probably means it's in 4K. So yeah, I'll probably rewatch that again soon. That'll look good in 4K for sure.
Ooh.
After Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah. After I finish Breaking Bad, totally.
Yeah. Super happening.
Totally. All right, Bobby. Your number 2 film on this list?
My number 2.
Yes.
I mean, I could almost take everything you said word for word and apply it to my number 2, maybe with the exception of the director, which I didn't really have a problem with, but there was a lot of problems with the making of this movie. So I can understand why there may not be a sequel to it, but it's a movie that I love and I'm in the minority of it, but I really do think that it was something that was a fun adventure movie, which I went into not thinking I would like at all. So I came out on the other side really happy with it. So my number 2 is Solo, A Star Wars Story. And
Wow.
I just think that for me, I did not have the problem with Alden Ehrenreich's performance as much as I thought I would. I still think it could have been better, but everything else around it, I really enjoyed. The look, the story, the action, Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian, just a lot of aspects of that movie really worked for me. And again, it was another movie that within the last year or so, maybe there'd been rumblings of people were hoping that maybe they would make a sequel. It was like it was being rediscovered, or people were having second thoughts on it, maybe after having some time to sit with it. But either way, I think it's one of those things where it started and crashed and burned essentially the idea of having these one-off movies after they had already did one with Rogue One and then tried to do one with this and not having the outcome that they wanted. But it has a special place in my heart. I really do enjoy that movie, and that's my 2.
Yes. All right, Yasha, your number 2 film?
My number 2 is Aragon. I don't know if you guys remember that. Hang on one second for me. I'm really sorry.
we lost him.
We lost Yasha.
I never saw that movie.
I never saw Aragon either.
You know what's funny? I was looking up some top 5 lists, and it actually came up a couple of times. I was like,
Yeah.
really? And I never saw it, but I know the books are
Very
insanely
popular, yeah.
The young adult books, very popular.
Right.
Really sorry about that, guys.
No problem.
So sorry. So nobody here has seen Aragon?
No.
No.
I know
No.
of the young adult books, but that's it.
Yeah, it was fairly cheesy, really simplistic, very corny, kind of corny. You can very much predict where the story was going to go, but it was a fun story. And at the end of it, they have this massive, huge cliffhanger for like a sequel of like, this is a series that's going to start. And it just doesn't happen. Like they never go that direction. And it's just not there. And it will never be there. It's like they got eaten up at the box office. Like it was $100 million budget and they only made $23 million. Like it's crazy. So
Well,
that's a story that we'll never get.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it's ever going to get a sequel, unfortunately. I was just going to say it's a very crazily, wildly popular young adult series of books. And
Yeah.
so I almost feel like because it never got the Hunger Games treatment or the Divergent series treatment, it really kind of missed its opportunity to have a full sequence of films completely. But because I guess the production value, even with such a nice budget, was sad and there were no name actors and not no name actors that have a chance, but no name actors that didn't seem to really go anywhere. And I think if it maybe had a production value of, say, the Hunger Games, it could have done something really awesome.
Well, the sad thing is like it had stars in it. Like it had big names: Jeremy Irons, Robert Carlyle,
well,
John
Jeremy
Malkovich.
Irons.
Rachel Wise was the voice of the dragon. Like there was definitely people in it. Like, and when it comes down to it, it's like I mean, the story was, like I said, it was a young adult's book, but it's like, and I didn't know that. I found that out after I'd seen the movie. But this is, I mean, it was a fun story. Like I enjoyed it, and for whatever reason,
And then we lost him.
Then we lost him, like, cut out, lost him.
Yeah, we lost him.
Dang.
Michelle,
well,
what was your number 2?
Inside Out.
yeah.
I think with the exception of Michelle's, all of our others have been really movies that were like cult kind of movies that people loved, but not to the status that I think that the people that liked it would have liked to have seen it grow to. With Yasha, Aragorn, I mean, it's a movie that pretty much none of us have seen, but Yasha
Right.
seems to love it.
No.
Tron Legacy, again, David, that's a movie that not enough people saw,
Yeah,
but the people
right.
who did see it, they were kind of one way or the other on it.
Right.
Same with Solo. But Inside Out is definitely one that everyone across the board has loved,
Yeah.
and it made a lot of money. So that's kind of the outlier that you would think maybe if they were thinking in terms of sequels, that would have gotten one.
Right. All right. Well, I guess that leaves us with our number 1 picks. And Michelle, we go to you. What is your number 1 film that you feel like should have a sequel?
Well, and I think you and I might have the same one as our number 1.
You think so?
If we do, I was just going to say the name of it and then go to you, and then we can maybe just have a discussion. But
Oh, well, I mean, there's always a possibility it could be all of our number 1. So I don't know if,
It is.
Well, you
I
already-
wouldn't be
By what
shocked
Michelle
if this
sent
is
you
going to be a number 1 sweep here.
I'll put it this way. I know
Yeah.
you know it's my number 1. So if it's correct, why don't you just say, okay.
Well, why don't you just say your number 1?
All right. So, and arguments could be made that there is kind of a sequel
Not
to
really.
this, but I don't think so.
they're not really.
Those people would be wrong.
They would be incorrect.
They would be wrong.
They would be wrong. My number 1 film that really needs a sequel is Man of Steel. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's a lot there, and if anybody else has this in their top 1, then we'll have a little discussion about it.
There's a lot there. Yes,
A lot there.
it is at my number 1 spot, Man of Steel.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Not surprising. No, Batman versus Superman is not a sequel to Man of Steel. Not a proper sequel that we all want. Yeah, Man of Steel may have been divisive a little bit, but I loved it. Even having rewatched the original Superman, the movie very recently, Christopher Reeve, which I love as well. But Henry Cavill's Superman is a Superman I want more of, and he hasn't had really any opportunities to play this role past Man of Steel, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, he's got a major part in Batman vs. Superman, but that's not what I wanted in a sequel. And then there's Justice League, and we'll see what happens with the Zack Snyder cut, I guess. But yeah, I desperately want to see Henry Cavill as Superman more, and unfortunately, past seeing this Snyder cut, I don't see it happening. And that's, I think, really unfortunate. I then will now wait for when we will not get another chance of a Superman franchise being made with a new actor, which when that finally happens, I hope it's done well. But in the meantime, I can still cross my fingers and hope that a Man of Steel sequel could possibly happen. I mean, maybe if the Snyder Cut does really, really well, maybe the drums will start getting beaten a little louder for that kind of thing to happen. You know, I mean, Henry Cavill, he's not going to age, right? He's basically going to be a Tom Cruise. He'll be able to play the
Right.
role for who knows how long. So,
And he said that he's always open to being Superman.
Right.
He's had the flame going in hopes that it would happen again in a sequence to Man of Steel for a very long time. And I feel like recently he finally was like, guys, I guess I'm just gonna have to admit defeat. Like, he's like, I'm not saying I'm giving up the fight per se, but if they want me, they know where to find me. I'll do it. But I'm not holding out hope anymore.
Right.
Like, I think he's even kind of heartbroken. He's like, it's just not happening.
all right, Bobby,
Yeah, I
your
think so
number
too.
your number one film on this list.
Yeah, my number one. I'm not even going to be building it up. It's Man of Steel. But what I want to say is that I really do think there might be a possibility we see Henry Cavill back as Superman. For one, on the Man of Steel watch along with Zack Snyder, Henry Cavill did pop into the stream and was
Oh,
there
really?
Oh,
as
he
well
did.
during. Yeah, he was there, and he was there also during the Q&A when they had after the movie. So he's there, and the fact that Warner Brothers is doing this and finishing it, and from what I understand, they didn't explicitly say it, but with people coming back to do reshoots and shoot new scenes and stuff, um, Henry Cavill did make the joke that he's like, "Yeah, I want to see a cut without the mustache," sort of thing. So
Right.
he'll I think he has a handle on the character, and I think seeing him in additional scenes and seeing what else that they want to do with the Justice League movie will just build out that initial aspect of people liking him as Superman and wanting to see more of him. And it will, at this point, it shows that the fandom, if they're loud enough, Warner Brothers will kowtow to what they want, essentially. I mean, this cut only came about because of how vocal and loud that group of people who wanted the Snyder Cut have been over these last few years, not letting it go. So if people really take to this Snyder Cut of Justice League, and we already know a lot of people, the majority of people like Henry Cavill as Superman, I think this goes into his favor, and that we will see and force Warner Brothers' hand to do more with Superman and Henry Cavill as Superman. So that's where I feel like we will, we are in a better position now today than we were yesterday in terms of seeing another Man of Steel and Henry Cavill as Man of Steel. So my number one is Man of Steel as well.
All right, Yasha, your number one film.
That's promising to hear. I really did enjoy listening to what Bobby had to say about that when it comes to maybe getting another Henry Cavill Superman, because I think we definitely deserve that. It's not my number one. Actually, I completely forgot about that. I guess maybe just because I dismissed it. I don't know. I did enjoy the Man of Steel movie a great deal. I loved it. But my number one is actually a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I just recently rewatched. And that Angelina Jolie's Salt. That movie is deserving of a sequel, and the cliffhanger for that was huge. And I would love to see more of that character and that storyline. And unfortunately, I know that we're never going to get that. So that's my top of my list. I've always wanted one, and I know that we're just never going to get that.
I never saw Salt.
I saw it, and it's a solid movie.
Yes.
I just never.
Yeah, it's good.
I think at the time, Yasha's right. When I remember seeing that movie, it felt like they were trying to make it into a series, that they could do more of these movies with the character, but it just kind of didn't go anywhere. And I don't know, maybe Yasha has the numbers there, but I thought it did well. I don't recall it being a bomb, and it wasn't like a smash success, but I thought it did well enough to where they could have explored the possibilities of doing more, but they just didn't.
I do have the numbers up, and it's definitely warranted for a sequel. Like, I mean, the domestic open wasn't great. It opened at $36 million. The budget was 110, but domestically, the total theatrical run was 118 million, and internationally 175, for a grand total of 293 million dollars. So I feel like those numbers are solid enough that hey, you could trim the budget a little bit to produce it and make it a little less some of the special effects when it came down to it, and you could have had a very solid franchise on that. Introduced new characters, brought bigger names in it. Like Liev Schreiber was in the first one. I mean, it was a solid movie. I definitely enjoyed it, and I wish that they would do a sequel.
All right, guys. Well, I guess that does it for our top 5 list this week. Michelle, you're going to get pick for our next list. I know you don't have it ready to go for tonight, but as soon as you make your pick for a top 5, you'll let everybody know. You'll probably jump on social media and let everybody know what we're going to count down next episode, whenever that will be, sometime next week. In the meantime, I guess we're going to wrap things up unless anybody's got anything else they want to touch on really quick. Anyone? Yeah, as always, we'd love to hear back from everyone watching. Please leave comments below here on YouTube. You can also hit us up at feedback@flickereffect.com if you would prefer to email us. Don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at @flicker_effect. Yeah, you just reach out. We would love to hear from everybody who is watching the show. We'd love to hear what everyone thinks. And with that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for watching.